breaking. James Carter felt his world stop as he stared at the woman he'd barely spoken to in 3 years of living next door. Behind him, his 5-year-old daughter's cartoon played cheerfully, oblivious to the crisis unfolding. In that moment, this single father had to make a choice that would change both their lives forever. If you're moved by stories of unexpected connection and second chances, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful human stories that remind us we're never truly alone in our struggles. James Carter had mastered the art of efficient parenting. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. Prepare Lily's lunch. Lay out her clothes. Make breakfast. Get her dressed. Drop her at kindergarten. Work remotely as a graphic designer until pickup. Dinner. Bath. Bedtime story. Collapse into exhaustion. Repeat. For 3 years since Melissa's death, this had been his life, mechanical, predictable, safe. The apartment next door had seen 4 different tenants in that time. The current one, a woman named Kate Sullivan, had moved in 8 months ago. Their interaction consisted of polite nods in the hallway and occasional small talk about the weather while collecting mail. James had noticed her kind smile and the way she always bent down to say hello to Lily, but he'd built walls around himself and his daughter that felt necessary for survival. That Friday evening in November had begun like any other. James was heating up dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets, Lily's favorite, while his daughter sat cross-legged in front of the television, entranced by animated animals singing about friendship. The knock on the door was so soft he almost didn't hear it. When he opened the door and saw Kate standing there, something was immediately wrong. Her normally neat appearance was disheveled. Her right hand clutched her left, which was wrapped in a blood-soaked kitchen towel. But it was her eyes that truly alarmed him, wide, red-rimmed, and filled with a desperation he recognized all too well from his own mirror in the months after becoming a widower. "I can't take it anymore," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry, I didn't know where else to go." James froze. His mind raced through possibilities: domestic violence? Self-harm? An accident? The single father in him wanted to close the door, to protect his daughter from whatever chaos this represented. The human in him couldn't turn away. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "Lily, honey, can you go play in your room for a few minutes?" Lily looked up, curious about their visitor, but nodded and skipped down the hallway, her pigtails bouncing with each step. James guided Kate to the kitchen sink, gently unwrapping the towel to reveal a deep cut across her palm. "What happened?" he asked, running cool water over the wound. "I was cutting vegetables," she said, wincing. "But my hands were shaking so badly, they've been shaking for days now." Her voice cracked. "I haven't slept in 3 days. The letter came on Tuesday." James reached for the first aid kit he kept on top of the refrigerator. "What letter?" Kate's eyes welled with fresh tears. "My mother has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. She's in Boston. I'm all she has left, but I can't afford to quit my job here. I can't afford to stay here either. I can't." Her voice dissolved into quiet sobs. As James carefully cleaned and bandaged her hand, he felt something crack open inside him, a door he'd kept firmly shut since Melissa's funeral. He recognized the overwhelming isolation of facing impossible choices alone. "When was the last time you ate something?" he asked. Kate shook her head. "I don't remember." "Sit down. We have plenty of dinosaur nuggets." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Fancy. Only the best in the Carter household," he said, surprising himself with the ease of the joke. Over the next hour, as Lily returned and chattered happily about her day at school, James watched Kate slowly come back to herself. The color returned to her cheeks. Her hands steadied. When Lily insisted on showing Kate her collection of rocks and seashells, James saw something he hadn't witnessed in his neighbor before, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. After Lily went to bed, they sat at his small kitchen table with mugs of tea. "I'm sorry for barging in like that," Kate said. "I've never. I'm usually more together than this." "Don't apologize," James replied. "After my wife died, I once had a complete breakdown in the cereal aisle because I couldn't remember which brand Lily preferred. A stranger helped me to a bench and sat with me for 20 minutes. Kate looked up, surprised. "I didn't know you were widowed." "I'm so sorry. 3 years ago. Car accident." The words no longer felt like glass in his throat. "You learn to function, but sometimes the weight just becomes too much for one person to carry." "That's exactly it," Kate whispered. "Too much." James took a deep breath. "Tell me about your mother. Tell me about your situation. Maybe there's a solution we haven't thought of yet." And so she did. Kate was a nurse at the local hospital. Her mother, a retired teacher, had been her rock throughout life. They spoke daily. The diagnosis had been sudden, aggressive. Her mother insisted Kate shouldn't upend her life, but Kate couldn't imagine not being there for her final months. Her savings wouldn't cover the cost of breaking her lease, moving, finding a new job, and supporting herself in Boston, which had a much higher cost of living than their small Midwestern town. As she spoke, James found himself mentally calculating, planning, thinking of possibilities. For the first time in years, his mind was fully engaged with someone else's problems instead of just surviving his own. "What if," he said slowly, "you didn't have to pay rent for a while?" Kate looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I work from home. I could watch your apartment. Water your plants. Forward your mail. You could sublet to me on paper but not actually charge me. It would keep your lease valid without you having to break it. That's incredibly kind, but I couldn't ask you to." "You didn't ask. I'm offering." James surprised himself with his certainty. "And there's something else. My sister lives in Cambridge. She's been begging me to visit since Melissa died. Maybe it's time Lily and I took a trip east. Not permanently, just for a couple of weeks. My work is portable. Lily would love to see snow." Kate stared at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. You shouldn't have to choose between your job and your mother. And maybe—" He hesitated, then continued, "Maybe Lily and I need to step outside our routine for a bit. We've been stuck in survival mode for too long." That night changed everything. Over the next week, James helped Kate make arrangements. He contacted his sister, who was overjoyed at the prospect of finally meeting her niece. He spoke with his landlord, who agreed to the temporary subletting arrangement. He even drove Kate to the hospital to request family medical leave. 2 weeks later, James and Lily stood in the airport with Kate, all three of them holding tickets to Boston. "I still can't believe you're doing this," Kate said, her eyes bright with unshed tears, but these were different from the desperate ones that had appeared at his door that night. "Neither can I," James admitted with a small laugh. "But it feels right." Lily tugged at Kate's hand. "Daddy says your mommy is sick." "My mommy got sick too, but she went to heaven. I hope your mommy feels better." Kate knelt down, meeting Lily at eye level. "Thank you, sweetheart. I hope so too." As they boarded the plane, James felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. He wasn't naive enough to think this journey would be simple. Kate's mother was facing a terminal illness. He was taking his daughter to a new environment. They were all stepping into uncertainty. But for the first time since becoming a single father, James wasn't facing a challenge alone. And neither was Kate. The weeks in Boston transformed them all. James's sister Emily embraced them wholeheartedly, giving Lily the doting aunt experience she'd been missing. Kate's mother, Margaret, despite her illness, was a force of nature who immediately adopted James and Lily into her heart, insisting they join for Sunday dinners at her small apartment. James found himself working at Margaret's kitchen table while Kate took her mother to appointments. Lily would color quietly beside him, occasionally asking questions about Miss Kate's mommy and why she needed so many medicines. He answered as honestly as he could, remembering how much he'd struggled to explain Melissa's absence to a 2-year-old. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep in Emily's guest room, James sat on the porch with Kate, watching snow fall gently on the street. "She asked me today if people can have 2 mommies," Kate said quietly. "One on earth and one in heaven." James felt his heart constrict. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that love doesn't have limits. That her mommy in heaven will always be her mommy, but that doesn't mean her heart can't have room for other people too." Kate looked at him nervously. "Was that okay?" "I should have waited for you to answer." James reached for her hand. "It was perfect. Better than I could have explained it." Something was growing between them, a connection neither had expected. It wasn't just gratitude or circumstance. It was the recognition of shared values, complementary strengths, and a mutual understanding of loss and resilience. When their 2 weeks were up, James made another impulsive decision. He called his clients, rearranged deadlines, and extended their stay by another month. Emily was thrilled. Margaret's health had stabilized somewhat with a new treatment protocol. And Kate? Kate looked at him with such relief and gratitude that he knew he'd made the right choice. As Christmas approached, Margaret's apartment became a hub of activity. James hung lights while Kate and Lily baked cookies. Emily brought over an artificial tree that Margaret insisted they decorate, with all the tacky ornaments possible. For the first time since Melissa's death, James found himself fully immersed in holiday preparations, watching his daughter blossom in the warmth of this makeshift family they'd created. On Christmas Eve, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, vibrating with excitement about Santa's impending visit, James and Kate sat by the tree in Emily's living room. "I got my performance review email today," Kate said, staring into her mug of hot chocolate. "They're eliminating my position due to budget cuts. Effective January 31st. James set down his own mug. "Kate, I'm so sorry." She looked up, and to his surprise, she was smiling. "I'm not. I've been thinking about moving back to Boston anyway. Mom's responding well to treatment, but she shouldn't be alone. And there's a nursing shortage here. I already have 2 interviews lined up after the holidays." "You're staying," James said, the realization hitting him with unexpected force. "I'm staying," she confirmed. "What about you and Lily? When are you heading back home?" The word home hung between them, suddenly complicated. James looked at the Christmas tree, at the stockings hanging from Emily's mantel, 4 of them, with their names carefully written in glitter. He thought about their apartment back in the Midwest, about the life he'd constructed there that had felt like merely existing until Kate had knocked on his door. "I don't know," he admitted. "Emily has been talking about how the school district here has an excellent kindergarten program. My work is completely remote." "And Lily?" He smiled. "Lily asked me yesterday if we could live near Grandma Margaret forever." Kate's eyes widened. "Grandma Margaret? That's what she's been calling her. I hope that's okay." "It's more than okay. Mom hasn't stopped talking about that precious child since you arrived." Kate hesitated. "But James, your whole life is back there. Your support system, your routine." "My support system is sitting right here," he said quietly. "And routines can change. Should change, sometimes." On Christmas morning, as Lily excitedly unwrapped presents and Margaret sat in the place of honor on Emily's couch, James watched Kate laughing at something his sister said. He thought about the night she had appeared at his door, bloodied and desperate, and how that moment of crisis had somehow led them here, to this warm room filled with joy and possibility. Later that day, while Lily napped off her excitement and the adults cleaned up the wrapping paper hurricane, Margaret beckoned James to sit beside her. My Catherine hasn't smiled like that in years, she said, her voice thin but her eyes sharp and clear. Not since before her father passed. James nodded. She's remarkable. You raised an incredible daughter. And you've raised a beautiful child yourself, Margaret replied. Under difficult circumstances. I'm still figuring it out day by day. Margaret patted his hand. That's all any parent does, dear. But it's easier when you're not doing it alone. She gave him a knowing look. Sometimes the family we need finds us in unexpected ways. By February, decisions had been made. James gave notice on their apartment, arranged for their belongings to be shipped, and enrolled Lily in the local kindergarten for the fall semester. Kate found a position at a hospital 10 minutes from her mother's apartment. And Emily, thrilled to have her brother and niece nearby, helped them find a small house to rent just a few blocks from her own. The day they moved in, Margaret insisted on hosting a dinner to celebrate, despite her diminished energy. As they gathered around her table, James, Lily, Kate, Emily, and a few of Kate's childhood friends, James marveled at how completely his life had transformed in just 3 months. After dinner, while the others chatted in the living room, James found Kate in the kitchen, washing dishes. "Let me help," he said, picking up a towel. "You've done enough helping," she replied with a smile. "I'm still not sure I'll ever be able to repay you for what you did." "You already have," James said simply. "You helped me remember how to live instead of just survive." Kate set down the plate she was washing and turned to face him. "When I knocked on your door that night, I was at my lowest point. I couldn't see any way forward. I just needed someone. Anyone. And somehow, it was you." "I'm glad it was me," James said softly. "So am I." Kate hesitated, then continued. "James, I know this has all happened so quickly. Moving here, starting over. I don't want you to feel obligated to." "Kate," he interrupted gently, "nothing about this feels like obligation. It feels like finding something I didn't even know I was missing." In the doorway, unnoticed by either of them, Lily stood watching, her small face serious. "Daddy," she said suddenly, making them both turn, "are you and Miss Kate going to get married?" James felt his face flush as Kate let out a startled laugh. "Lily, we're not," he stammered. "Because Tommy at school says when grown-ups look at each other like that, they get married. And then Miss Kate could be my earth mommy while my real mommy watches from heaven." Lily stated this with the matter-of-fact confidence only a 5-year-old could muster. Kate knelt down to Lily's level. "Sweetheart, your daddy and I are very good friends. We care about each other very much. But marriage is a big decision that grown-ups need lots of time to think about." Lily considered this. "How much time? Like a week?" This time, James couldn't help laughing. "A bit longer than that, pumpkin." "Okay," Lily said with a shrug. "But when you decide, I want to wear a pretty dress." With that declaration made, she skipped back to the living room, mission apparently accomplished. James and Kate looked at each other, embarrassment giving way to amusement. "Well," Kate said, "at least we have Lily's approval." "She's always been a good judge of character," James replied, his heart lighter than it had been in years. That spring brought both challenges and joys. Margaret's health declined again, requiring more of Kate's time and emotional energy. James stepped in wherever he could, taking Lily to school events so Kate could attend appointments, cooking meals for all of them on days when Margaret felt well enough to eat at the table, sitting with the older woman when Kate needed a break. One evening in April, after Margaret had finally fallen asleep, Kate joined James on the porch swing of their rented house. "The doctors say it might be weeks now, not months," she said, her voice steady but her eyes reflecting her pain. James put his arm around her shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Kate. I'm